Okay, so in this part two, this part, I'm going to show you now how to get the Reg Marks that you created, Reg Mark template, into an existing file, and then get just the cut lines over into Create. So this is a file that I created, and I based it on something similar that I've seen, where you have an image, and then the cut line, which is the red line, this was imported as part of the transparent PNG, and apparently it's very popular too in whatever programs the stickers are being designed, is to put a white border around the outside, and then when you import that PNG is going to put that cut line along that outside white border. Then they have another cut line, which is the outer cut line, and the idea is the red line will be scored, it'll just be kiss cut, and then the blue line will be, that cut line will cut all the way through. So when you come in, you can see the registration marks here. So what I need to do first is come over and turn those off because those are no longer needed. And then, of course, I verified that the size of the project, we come over here to the document panel, that the media size is letter because that's what the registration marks are based on. That's what the when you created the template. Now then, before I bring in the registration marks, I want to make sure that these red lines are detached from the images, because otherwise when I get ready to export these cut lines as SVG, it's going to grab the images too. And that's the other issue that people are having. One of the reasons they want to be able to print from Silhouette Studio is that these raster images, if you have a whole lot of them, like you have a lot of little stickers, they can really bog down just getting that SVG imported into Create. In fact, if you think that's a problem with Create, try re-importing an SVG back into Silhouette Studio that has a bunch of stickers on it, because I tested that. And in fact, I tested like 3 or 4 other programs, and it was just, it's insane. So it really is nice to be able to do this process of printing from Silhouette Studio and only taking the cut lines into Create. All right, so in order to get rid of or detach those, you just select everything and select the Modify panel. And then on the Modify panel, you can come down and click on Detach Lines. And now then that's going to separate those images from those cut lines. Next, let's bring in the Reg Mark template file that we created in the part 1 part of this video, these 2 videos. And we go to File, Merge, and we locate that registration mark file that we created, and it's right down here, and it's the Studio 3. I don't need to bring in the SVG because I went ahead and converted to a Studio 3 so that it would have the right thickness and it would be grouped together and all that good stuff. All right, so it brings it in here. So that's great. That's ready to go. And now I'm ready for the printing. So I can go to File. Oh, before I do that, notice at this point also you could move these shapes around. The only thing for the solo, the only thing you have to remember is that the print part, which would be just the clip art part, it needs to be within the print boundaries, not within the registration marks. Registration marks are just where they are. You can have the print extend beyond the registration marks as long as it's still going to end up on the printout. It's still within the print margins, or over to the left or down the bottom. So that allows you to really add a lot more to your file if you want to. The only thing you have to watch for is you don't want any of the image to be too close to the registration marks, because in the camera, when it gets ready to take a photograph of the registration mark, it might get confused if part of the image is really close to that registration mark. All right, so when you're ready to print, go to File, Print. Okay, and then verify that you see the registration marks and you see the print part that you want, and of course you don't see any cut lines, and then go ahead and click on Print. All right, so I'm going to cancel out of that. Now then I'm ready to export the part that I want to take over to Create. So we're going to use Edit, Select by Color. And then over here now, I see that I have 3 colors. I have the blue, which is going to be the cut line, the red, which is the score line, and then the black, which are the registration marks. And you want to bring the registration marks over, even though you're not going to be using them particularly in Create, but they're very useful for getting your project centered in the document area in Create. So I do recommend you take those over too. But first of all, we're going to group all of the blue lines together and all the red lines together. And the reason that's a good idea to do it here is because you can select all of one particular color. And then, for example, when you get that, if you group it, then when you get it over into Create, we'll be able to assign it a score. So I'm going to select all the red lines and then go to Object Group, or you can use Control G, all right, and then do the same thing with the blue lines, Object Group. Now then, I'm ready to export. So to select the blue, hold down the shift, select the red, and select the black, not the no color, just those three. Now I've got those items selected. I go to File, Save Selection, not Save As, but Save Selection, and then of course locate, where you want to save it. Now this is a useful part right here too. If you don't have the business edition of Silh Studio, you can go ahead and just save it as a Studio 3 file, and then there is an online link you can go to, and you can convert up to 10 files per day from Studio 3 into SVG files. So that's what you want to do if you don't have the business edition. Otherwise, you would save this as an SVG file instead, just to bring it directly into Create. Okay, so now then I'm going to leave it at Zoo Animals, and I click on OK. Now then over in Create, go to Edit Preferences, and you want to make sure that this is set to, the DPI is set to 72. And this is true of whether you're going to use the business edition or you're going to use that online website to convert 10, it can allow you to convert up to 10 Studio 3 files to SVG. You need this to be at 72 so that the SVG will import at the correct size. Okay, so now then with Create, you've got your 8.5 by 11 document area. You come over to the Import button and you locate that SVG file. It's called zooanimals.svg. I click on Open, and it comes in nice and fast because, again, I don't need to have those raster images in here again. So now then with it set like this, everything selected, I'm going to come to the Position and Size panel. Make sure it says to page, and then I'm going to center it using these two icons. And then when I do that, it should match up those registration marks perfectly with the ones that are actually there. So you know that everything is, all set for the solo to be able to find those particular registration marks on the printout. On the Layers panel, you'll notice that we now have, let me move these out of the way. When we open this up, we now have three groups. One of them are the cut lines, or the registration marks, and that's, you'll see the extension goes all the way out. So I don't need those anymore. Again, the whole idea was to bring them over was just to make it easy to center the project on the page. So I can eliminate those, and now then I see just the ones that are, that create ads. This one down here, I'm going to open this one up, and I can see it has red lines. So these are going to be the score lines. So with this group selected, I come over to the Style panel, let me pop it out, and I'm going to change this from Cut to Score. And then if you like, you can come up here and you can rename it Score, or you can name it Red Lines, or just whatever you want to rename it so that you can remember that that's what this particular group is. And then this group, of course, this is going to be all of the blue lines. So it's automatically going to be set to Cut, so that's fine. And again, you can rename it if you want to. Okay, and then you're basically ready to go. From there, you would just go into Create. Of course, do the part in terms of setting your printout, onto the mat, and put the blade tip over that lower right-hand corner. And then in here, this is where you would set your force. Make sure you have Use Software, Speed, and Force marked, and then you can set your force that you want to use for cutting all the way through, and set your score force for whatever you need to just cut the stickers. And then click on Print and Cut and go from there. If you have any questions, please let me know. This, I think, is going to be very useful for those who use Silh Studio, and especially have a lot of existing projects where they don't want to, have to recreate them in Create.